record. Okay, so going live on Facebook now. And I'm going to let in the people who are in the waiting room. Hi everybody, it's just about 6 o'clock now, so thank you for joining us this evening for the second in our In Conversation With series. Tonight we have Harriet Selka and Noël Callaghan in conversation. They are both artists. We work in the Harvest exhibition this year. So I am just going to ask them to unmute their microphones now. Noël, I think you might need to click something there. Oh, ask to unmute there. Is it not working? Oh. Ah, there we go. There we go. Okay, great. Thank you both for joining us tonight, and I'm going to step back now and let you two have a nice conversation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks everyone for coming to listen to us.
Hi Harriet.
Hi Noël.
I hope you can hear me. Berlin calling.
Can you hear me okay?
How are you?
Great. It's been a nice day in Skull. How the weather's nice. How is Berlin?
Oh well, it's quite good actually. I'm happy with the weather at the moment. We had a terrible heat wave there last week and it was just far too warm, but it's after cooling down, so that's good for me. I like that. My studio is south facing and it's all windows on one side. So when the temperatures gets up to 35 degrees, I can't use. So.
Oh my goodness, 35. Wow, that's tropical. That's like another world.
Too much for me.
Have you been able to work? Have you been able to keep working in your studio all through lockdown, or were you kind of stuck in your?
No, it was fine actually because well, the lockdown in Berlin wasn't really as strong as it was in Ireland. I would have been happier actually if it had been more so because I thought they were a little bit lax about it all. But my studio is about 10 minutes away by bicycle, so I was able to cycle there every day, so that was okay. Yeah.
That's so nice.
Yeah, anytime I wanted to go there, I could go. There wasn't it wasn't strict keeping people in their houses. I mean, technically speaking, you were supposed to stay at home for a couple of weeks at first, and you were just supposed to go out to work if you could work from home. So I reckon my studio's my work, so I just go there, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course, it's definitely a work. definitely counts as your place.
And anyway, there was nobody there. I mean, I just have, I have a group studio. I'm with, it's a kind of a state-run studio complex. So I have a studio there, but I don't necessarily see anybody when I go in there. You know, I just have my own key. I go into my own place. So
Cool.
it's okay.
That's really great. I've just been having a look at your website, and I think that we've got a lot in common in the way that this collection of work is kind of is slightly different to the work that we're normally making. I think we both paint a lot of figurative work a lot of the time. Would you say that's fair, or do you think that
I think I do both, really. You know, maybe I uploaded more of my figurative work, but I would say I reckon I do both, really.
Okay,
you know.
nice.
But I do see common ground, because I was also looking at your website. I think we do have common ground, certainly.
Yeah.
I go to life drawing kind of regularly, so maybe that's where you came across the figurative work.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that I just saw I saw a really cool video on your website of you doing some charcoal life drawings. I think it might be quite an old video, but
it's about 10 years old now. Yeah.
It was really cool to see. Yeah, definitely really cool. I just love the fluidity in these pieces that I'm looking at now on the slide, the abstract pieces. And am I right in thinking that they're quite small?
These ones, they are quite small, actually. Yeah, they are, because of being in Berlin. I thought if anybody was buying one, I would have to post it, so I kept them. I put in small ones. But I do work larger.
Yeah, very much. Actually, I had a similar thought with my work as well. You can see one of the paintings that I've got behind me, and that's the slightly bigger size. But
yeah,
I'm also thinking like it's quite a big decision to buy paintings online at all. So I think the smaller pieces are kind of a bit more accessible with this kind of new format of the online exhibition. Which, by the way, anyone listening who hasn't been and had a look at the online exhibition should definitely have a look, because it's amazing, the whole 3D gallery thing.
That's great. Yeah, it's amazing to have this walkthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah. High tech.
I was reading in your statement on your website about how you really try to work spontaneously, and there's trying to find a balance of like how much control you have over how fluid it becomes all, and then could you tell me a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, I'm always trying to kind of, I suppose, I want to make it look like it's all very sudden, you know. I'm not trying to paint sort of the landscape straight out. I'm trying to paint more the impact the landscape has on me, you know. I'll give you an example. I was many years ago, I was in Mayo on a painting trip, and I cycled a really long distance one day, and I cycled along country road, and I rounded a bend, and suddenly this big vista opened up in front of me of this amazing mountain, and it was this kind of a gasp moment, you know. And those are the kind of moments I'm trying to convey, the kind of impact, you know. And when I saw that mountain, it was a real kind of magic mountain. It had a head and shoulders, and I was thinking, like, God, our ancestors back in the Stone Age must have been walking along here, and when they came around and saw that mountain, you know, the impact it must have had, because it looked like a giant. And then, of course, I realized where I was in Mayo. And in those days, of course, you couldn't just Google where you are. But it just later struck me, of course, it must have been Croagh, and it was, which is Ireland's holy mountain.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But actually, like, I recognized it immediately, because I didn't recognize it as Croagh, but the presence that mountain had, you know, when I rounded the corner, it nearly knocked me off my bike. And I got off and did a sketch immediately. And it's that kind of, so I'm trying to get that feeling of impact and suddenness.
Yeah.
Of course, the landscape in Ireland is so changing with the light and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. The light can completely transform a landscape as well.
Yeah.
From being, you know, dramatic to not, or vice versa.
Yeah.
I think that that suddenness really comes across in the paintings that we're looking at here, particularly the yellow, the field Is that a field?
Oh, the stubble field, yeah.
Yeah. That's just so, that's that with the hay bales at the bottom almost. Those just like, this is what I'm making of it. I might be wrong, but
No. That's I mean, the thing is, when I'm making those paintings, turning them afterwards, I became hay bales. I'm glad you saw them as hay bales, because they're just actually one quick spiral of red. And you know, I read hay bale as well. You know,
it's interesting how you kind of
making
identify things later like that. Sometimes you just, particularly when you can do, you know, just a little squiggle that's just don't really know where it came from, and then you come back and actually it represents something that you might have seen earlier in the day.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how the mind works like that.
Yeah, it is. I was reading an interesting book there not so long ago from Mark Rothko, who's one of my favorite painters, and his book is called The Artist's Vision, and in that he had a chapter. Well, it's all about painting, but it was published after his death by his son, who found the manuscript, and he wrote it long before he was doing his famous color field paintings. But in his chapter on subject matter and subject, he wrote like that there's a difference for him between subject and subject matter. That he said, like, subject matter is like what it's ostensibly about. Like, for example, you could have a bowl of fruit, and if it was beautiful, sumptuous looking fruit, then the subject would be the celebration of the sensuousness of life. If you had a bowl of fruit which was kind of rotten and decaying, then the subject would be death and decay. So you could have the subject matter, being a bowl of fruit, producing two completely different subjects. And I found that interesting, because people sometimes ask you what you paint, and for me, just saying, okay, I paint landscapes, I do life drawings, I do animals, etc. It's not for me really enough description. And I started thinking about, in relation to the Rothko sort of analysis, what am I actually painting? And I came to the conclusion, I'm trying to paint freedom and truth and transparency in my work. And that's why the lines, I try to keep things free and open, you know? So when I started thinking about the difference between subject matter and subject, that was a kind of conclusion I came to. Because I find, like, within society that we're living in a kind of, my opinion, we're living in totalitarian capitalism, and there is no real freedom and truth. And so within my little corral of 40 by 50 or 60 by 70, I have absolute freedom. So I'm trying to create that absolute freedom, and I'm trying to keep a truth to my vision and a transparency. So I like people to be able to actually see through the paintings to the ground beneath.
Yeah, I really like how your grounds show through, and those like little windows of white or whatever the color is underneath. And yeah, I can really see that, the transparency, particularly in that pink on the coastal scene.
Right.
The way that there's just it's just like delicious texture of paint there, where you've just got a little bit of the darkness coming through from underneath. Yeah, I think it's really really successful. Really.
Thank you. Yeah, so the idea not to kind of hide what I've changed is sort of part of it, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly, and sort of telling a story through the layers of paint.
Yeah, palimpsest or whatever like that.
Yeah.
And also, I suppose I try to deconstruct the painting surface in a way by kind of like opening up the painting and saying, this is how it's constructed, you know, so that for that mark that you read, hay bales, which I also read, hay bales, it's made in a very open way that people can see, and they can accept that as the hay bale or not if they want to, you know.
Yeah.
So trying to keep it open like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always good to have things that can be interpreted in different ways. Absolutely. I think.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that we both used seaweed as our motif, me and two.
Well, it's something like kind of hard. I found that the last 2 years of topics for the West Cork Creates exhibition quite challenging because they've really pushed me to do something new. So last year it was Into the Woods, and I've never painted a tree in my in the last like 10 years, apart from like the cauliflower tree as a child or something. But or broccoli or whatever it is. But I think that seaweed is just so. It just says everything about West Cork. It seems like something that so many people don't think about, don't even look at, probably hate the smell of. That kind of one of those like really polarizing things where there are some people in West Cork that will harvest the seaweed and cook with it and do amazing things with it, and then some people will put it on their garden and that will produce amazing things, and then it produces these amazing forms of habitat for all these different creatures and things living in the sea, and it's just an amazing thing. And then I just really like the thought of it kind of like floating around in the water, and I started doing these really fluid drawings, and that's how I ended up with this sort of motif that's in all the paintings now, where it's kind of like really embracing and trying to make the seaweed shine, but they're quite I suppose these paintings are slightly, so particularly the ones on paper, they're quite quick and clean and quite obvious. There's a definite contrast between our works here in the way that yours have got much more layers, but I think it's quite interesting to see the two together for that reason.
Yeah, but I think we both like flatness to a certain extent as well.
Oh yeah, I think so, definitely.
I see a certain flatness in both, so like this is a surface, you know.
Yeah, and also this is a surface, and also this is a painting, and I'm
this is a painting, exactly.
Embrace, I mean, you can't really tell when you look at them this size, but I'm going to embrace, the texture of the paint, and when you see them in person, you get that so much more than digitally, obviously. But they're both absolutely both embracing the surface.
I find seaweed is I love eating seaweed. Actually, there's these delicious seaweed sausages that they make in Roaring Water products, and they're really nice. But I also cook with dulse sometimes. I like it.
Yeah, it's really good in baking.
Oh no, I've never tried that.
I worked one summer with Carmel at Good Things Cafe, and she used to put dulse in cheese scones.
Oh,
really,
right.
It goes really well with bacon and cheese. Very delicious. But anyway, back to the painting. So you were telling me about when you were on a bike ride in Mayo and had this amazing thing and pulled over and did a quick sketch. But how would you say that's quite often how you work? Will you record things by doing a quick sketch and then working from memory, or do you use photographs, or what's your kind of preferred method?
Well, I never use photographs for a start. I like to paint on the spot if possible, but I don't always finish what I paint on the spot. If I can, it's great. I like to do maybe 90% on the spot, and then maybe sometimes I touch a little tiny touch later. But I noticed recently I have been working more in my studio from sketches. So I'm working kind of on bigger paintings, which I can't take out so easily. And I love watercolor. I love working in watercolor. I think it's a great way of practicing color mixes, because you have, for a start, no mess of cleaning up horrible brushes afterwards, which you do with oils. And it's great for transporting. You can take it out with you very easily. So I do a lot of watercolor sketching, and I have been then sort of trying to translate those into oil painting sometimes, which it's such a different medium, oil paint is so kind of, it can be so stodgy sometimes, and compared to the fluidity of watercolor. So I have been working from sketches. I don't like to work from photographs because I think there's too many details in a photograph anyway. And I think if I've been on the spot, what I take away from it in my memory is the most essential. I'm always trying to work things back down to the very basics, down to the minimum. The less I can say, the better, really, on a surface.
Absolutely. It's such a challenge to know when to when to walk
Pull
away.
back.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with turpentine on a rag, taking things off. Really, as much time as I spent
the
putting things
process
on, I think.
between watercolor painting and oil painting is so different in even just like the fundamentals of dark to light or light to dark. How, you know, with
Yeah, it is actually, yeah.
There's no going back, but with oil you can just like you have with the pinks in the coastal painting there as well.
Yeah. But I think I like I mean, when you're working in watercolor, you do a lot of working with negative space. And I do like to do that anyway in drawing and in paint, you know, to hack out the shapes with negative space. As with, if you look in the pink one again, the rock in the foreground is made simply from negative space that's left when I put in the pink. You know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I am interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah, negative space is always an interesting thing to work with, especially life drawing. I was interested to hear that you do lots of life drawing, because it's something that I've always found has brought me to make new things. It seems like the most fundamental thing, but you can, you know, buy a new, for example, a couple of years ago I bought these gel crayons that are designed for children, and they're like these just really clunky, thick, colourful pens. And just by having this new material, I found that I had to make all these new decisions while drawing, and they forced me to be bolder, which is what I wanted. But it's interesting how different, how life drawing can be the basis of just like so much, you know, so many different types of painting and different decision making and different.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, decision making is a good point, because I find like life drawing, I go to this life drawing group, the model runs it and she's brilliant, Irena from Sketch the Moment Berlin, and she in fact she's going to be doing online Zoom sessions now as well, so check out Sketch the Moment.
Yeah, well,
Sketch the Moment Berlin. Brilliant. She's a brilliant model. She does action all the time, so there's never a pose that's longer than 5 minutes. Most of them are 3 minutes, and quite a lot are just constant movement.
Amazing.
And so it's very exciting. And I really think like that you just really have to keep your line fluid then, and that kind of
look down, you just have to almost just like do it without thinking.
Yeah, do it without looking at the paper, you know, just keep trying to hit the right lines. And for me, that's very good for painting. You know, people mightn't see the connection between sort of landscape abstract and life drawing, but for me, there's quite a strong connection, because I'm working quickly a lot of the time. Absolutely. And you have to make decisions quickly. And with a lot of the time with the oil paintings, my ideal is to make them look like they were done in, you know, thrown off nonchalantly in an hour or two, but that isn't actually the case a lot of the time. But I would hope to capture that feeling, which is in the life drawing kind of feeling, the quick sketch.
So
try to make that in oil.
Absolutely, yeah. When you start up, if you have done some sketches and then you decide to create a big painting, do you kind of just let it flow, or do you like to base it so it does reflect the sketches quite honestly, or how do you work in that way?
I kind of would let it flow more or less, you know. I might pick out a couple of sketches that I have. When I say sketches now, they would be color sort of, and I'm interested in the sort of geometric shapes and colors within the landscape, and just sort of the horizon lines and stuff like that. So I might take out a few and look at them, but then the actual finished painting mightn't look anything like them, you know. They might just be the initial kind of impetus, you know.
I find exactly the same when I do, particularly with those thick gel crayons, when I start something out and then turn it into a painting, it normally ends up looking completely different by the end.
Yeah.
A similar motif or something that's continued throughout. But yeah, I completely get that.
And I was looking on your website, you have lovely ceramics.
After the West Court Creates exhibition last year, when we were allowed to go to exhibitions, the work that I created for that was abstract in a similar way to this, where it was kind of bold and colourful and simplified natural forms. And after that, I decided to have an exhibition in Edinburgh in December, so I was working towards that. And at the same time, I'd been going to this pottery workshop once a week.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be interesting to try and transfer some of the motifs that I was working with in the paintings onto the ceramic surfaces.
Yeah.
And so they're sort of more, they were useful things like plates and vases rather than just objects of art. But I really enjoyed that process of like I'd actually quite like to. I did do a tiny bit on textiles as well, and I think it could be interesting to continue with those motifs onto textiles. I did some I made some napkins with little each one had an embroidered drawing on it, which was quite fun. But I also thought that it was just interesting to see like what people responded to in the exhibition as well.
The ceramics reminded me of a bit of Bauhaus.
Oh, really?
Form follows function. I liked the flatness, again, this flatness that you have, the flatness of the plates, you know, and then this very modernist design, while the pottery looked kind of rustical, but the design was very modern. I liked that.
Well, cool, thanks, I suppose I'm kind of obsessed with extremely flat plates because my boyfriend is a very good chef and always wants his plates completely flat to be able to create, you know, beautiful works of art in themselves.
That's good. Yeah, flat plates are good. They look really nice too.
So who are the artists that you admire most? Who do you think your biggest influences are?
Well, I'm very into Mark Rothko. I really like his work. I was lucky enough to see an exhibition there about 15 years ago in Berlin of his work. But I suppose going way back, my father was a painter, Diarmuid Callaghan, and so he was a very big influence on me. And you can check out his website, diarmuidcallaghan.com. He died 25 years ago, but he was teacher of painting in the Crawford. So I grew up in a painting house. So that was quite
amazing.
Good. Yeah. That's good.
It must have been just like a normal language to grow up with, the language of...
It was really, yeah. I mean, it was like my mum used to point out the shapes and the pictures and saying, oh, look, that's a tree and and I suppose when I was a small child, she used to take me around to the pictures and I think I learnt my language through the paintings and these little marks were kind of more real to me than the tree outside or, you know, in later life. But I suppose so then I moved. I kind of looked at other painters, and I like most people, like half the world, I fell in love with Van Gogh in my teens, and then I got to know the Bruck, Edvard Munch, Emil Nolde, the German expressionists. I'm into the expressionism. I love the German expressionists, and I like the American abstract expressionists. I like Kathy Kollwitz.
To see those works.
Huh?
Berlin is a great place to see all
it is. Yeah, the Bruck Museum there is one of my favorite museums in Berlin. It's great. They have all the various collections.
Does that have anything to do with how you ended up in Berlin? The art there.
Yeah, I suppose the art, and also I suppose even the music in the mid '80s. Like there was a lot of interesting music. I'm very into music. I play music myself. With my partner Douglas. I play drums and percussion and sing, and so we still have a band together. We play music, but so yeah, the music scene in Berlin was very interesting in the sort of the Neue Deutsche Welle, Einstürzende Neubauten, and people like that. So Berlin was a real centre, and there was also a kind of a connection between Cork at the time. A lot of Cork people were there, and so yeah. But the art, of course, is very important as well. And I was a big fan of Bauhaus art and the German expressionists. You know, so yeah. Kathy Kollwitz, another contemporary painter here that I like as well is Rainer Fetting. He's also a German Berlin painter who's very good. And who else? I like the Marlene Dumas, her
Yeah,
work.
I love Marlene Dumas. Really
Yeah.
cool. And also Chantal Joffé is one of my go-to things. Do you know who? Have you heard of her?
No, I haven't come across, no.
She's British, and she just creates such delicious textures in paints. She does a lot of portraits in there, a lot of self-portraits as well, and they're just really like thick and beautiful. And
Okay, send me the link.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hi guys, sorry to interrupt, but we've just got a couple of minutes left. So thank you for a fascinating conversation. Is there any last question that either of you would like to ask, or anything either of you would like to say before you wrap it up?
Not. I think we've had quite a good chat. I think.
Are we going to the virtual pub after?
Well, we could have everybody turn their cameras on, and we could unmute everybody for the last couple of seconds and just say hi and bye.
Well, I can see. I had it very bad.
If people want to do that,
see very well. I have to put on my glasses now to see everybody.
No problem. Yeah. So I'm just gonna.
It was great. It was really interesting.
Hi.
Half an hour and I stayed and listened and watched. Thank you. That was very enjoyable.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you everyone so much for joining us and listening in, and we hope you enjoyed it. Sorry, puppy in the background. And we hope that you'll join us for the next one, which will be next week. Exact date and time to be confirmed, but there will be another one next week. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. Bye everyone.
Bye.
I saw one of my